Hello friends, let's draw a Luna moth. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to draw this illustration in a few easy steps. And I've got a freebie to share with you if you stay tuned till the end of the video. Let's dive right in. I'm using the Procreate app and I've got my canvas size set to 3000 pixels square at 300 dpi. Now, if your iPad doesn't get enough layers at that size, you can reduce the size to about 1500 pixels square, maybe even a little bit smaller, and that should get you more layers. But just remember to keep the DPI at 300 so that you'll still have a high resolution image. Let's start with a pencil sketch. The first thing we're going to do is draw very basic shapes to create a skeleton sketch. Go to the Actions menu, turn on Drawing Guide, tap Edit Drawing Guide and choose Symmetry. A vertical guide should appear in the middle of your canvas. If your guide is not vertical, tap here where it says Options and then choose Vertical from the list. First, we're going to draw a diamond shape for the body of the moth. Now this will be more of an elongated diamond because you want the bottom section to be longer than the top. Now for the antenna, start with a diagonal straight line, then we can fill that out by making it more of an elongated almond shape. Of course, since we're working in symmetry mode, we only need to focus on one side because it will automatically be mirrored on the other side. For the bottom wings, we're going to draw a triangle. Start at the side point of the diamond and draw a diagonal line. Then join the two lines with a slightly curved line so the triangle has a rounded base. Then, starting from the bottom of the body, draw long diagonal lines that extend beyond the triangle. This is where the tail will be. For the top wings, start a little higher than the bottom wings and draw a diagonal line that tilts upward slightly. Now draw a curve from one end of the line to the other, so it's going to look kind of like the letter D. Okay, there's our quick skeleton sketch, and this is going to be our guide as we fill out this drawing and give it a more realistic shape. First, reduce the opacity on this layer, and I'm going to drop it to about 25%. Create a new layer above and turn on Drawing Assist. Starting with the body, make the diamond shape rounder. And you can even extend this section to make it a little more tapered. For the antenna, you can redraw this shape exactly as it is, or you can stylize it a little. I'm going to go with more of a half almond instead of the full almond shape. Now for the bottom wings. Create another layer and turn on Drawing Assist. We're going to follow the same general triangular shape, but we're going to make it much more rounded. So rather than starting with a straight line, start with an arc. And for the bottom section, draw a wavy line rather than a straight one. Rather than meeting in the middle, the wavy line is going to transition into the tail, and for that we'll follow this diagonal line. Now you can be flexible with how you draw the tail. I'm drawing mine curving inwards, but yours can curve outwards or they can be straight. Try a few things and see what works for you. We're going to draw the top wings on yet another layer, and don't forget to turn on Drawing Assist. Start with a slight curve across the body, then extend that line so it curves upwards and then slopes downwards again towards the end. We don't want that sharp corner from the skeleton sketch, so round out the corners and then follow the line of the skeleton sketch to close the shape. Now these top wings don't usually have such a perfect curved shape, so you can go in and add a little wavy line in this area and then erase the excess to give the wings a more realistic look. You might need to turn off the skeleton sketch and tweak the shape a bit to get it to look exactly how you want it. By the way, this is why we're drawing all these shapes on different layers, so you have the freedom to change one section without affecting everything else. Once you're satisfied with all the shapes, pinch those 3 layers together to merge them. Drawing Assist should still be turned on, so now we can add a couple moon shapes to the wings. You can have fun with this detail and create whatever shapes you like. All right, time to start inking. Luna moths are a lovely yellow-green, so I've chosen a palette to complement that color. Of course, you can use any color combination you like. I actually recently shared a similar illustration, which I'll link to, and for the moth I used shades of coral and lavender, so feel free to get creative with the colors. But if you'd like to use the same colors I'm using, I'll let you know how to access this palette later in the video. First, change the background color to a nice dark color. I'm going with this deep green from my palette. Now create a new layer above the sketch and turn on Drawing Assist. This is where I'm going to draw the body, so I'm going to go ahead and name that layer. I'm using the yellow from my palette and I'm inking with the MONOLINE brush. Now create a new layer below the body layer and turn on Drawing Assist. We're going to ink the bottom wings, but as you can see, the body is hiding our sketch. So I'm going to temporarily reduce the opacity on the body layer so that we can see the sketch below. I'll turn that back up later. I'm using the bright green from the palette and the MONOLINE brush. Again, I'm going to reduce the opacity on this layer so we can see the sketch. Now for the top wings. Create a new layer between the bottom wings and the body. And you're going to turn on Drawing Assist for this new layer as well. I'm still using the bright green color, and again, you'll want to start and end your shape at the center line so you create a fully enclosed shape. Then fill it with color and reduce the opacity to about 75%. Now you can go back to the body layer and turn the opacity back up to 100, and on the bottom wings, turn the opacity back up, but only to about 85 or 90%. Now let's add some detail. Add a new layer above the body layer and make it a clipping mask. I'm just going to add a little shadow to the right side of the body using the darker yellow from the palette, and I'm using the noise brush for this. Then I'll add a few lines to the antenna with the dry ink brush. Now create a new layer above the bottom wings and make it a clipping mask. You can add a subtle gradient to this layer so that the color doesn't feel quite so flat. So I'm going to add a little blue to the upper section of these wings, and I'm using the chalk brush for this. Then you can use the smudge tool in the same chalk brush to blend the colors. I'll turn off the sketch layer and the top wings layer so you can see this a little better, but I'm not going for a super smooth blend. I just kind of want to give the wings a little bit more texture and color variation. Now let's add another layer above this clipping mask layer and make the new layer a clipping mask as well. By the way, if you're fairly new to Procreate and you've never stacked your clipping mask layers like this before, check out this video I recently shared with a few tips on how to use clipping masks. On the new layer, you can draw a few line details in a darker color. For the sake of efficiency, you can turn on Drawing Assist so both sides will be done at the same time. Then add a little white to the edges of the wings. And by the way, I'm using the dry ink brush for this. Now create a new layer above the top wings and make it a clipping mask, and also turn on Drawing Assist. This time I'm going to skip the gradient and just add a few subtle line details. And since these wings are more transparent, I'm actually going to use the smudge tool in the chalk brush to soften those lines a little. Then add white to the edges of these wings as well. Now you'll notice that the white isn't super bright, and that's because the opacity is reduced on this layer. If I turn the opacity up to 100%, you can see that the colors are much more vibrant, but the downside is that you'll lose the delicate ethereal look of the wings. We can always add a little bit more punch to the white areas later on. Now let's add those moon markings to the wings. Add a new layer at the top of all the active layers, and turn on Drawing Assist. Also turn your sketch back on so you have a reference. Draw your wing markings and stylize them however you'd like. Now, if you want the white edges on the wings to have more contrast, you can go ahead and trace those sections on this layer. Now that the moth is done, let's add a few more elements to finalize the illustration. Create a new layer below all the active layers. Draw a circle, and to make it a perfect circle, keep your pencil down, then tap the screen. This is our moon, and be sure to center it behind the moth. To add a little texture to the moon, create a new layer above and make it a clipping mask. Choose a slightly darker color, and then select the Stucco brush from the painting section of the brush library. Then lightly brush that texture onto the circle. Try not to overdo it though, otherwise the color will get too flat and you'll lose that textured look. Above the moon layers, add a new layer for the clouds. Since this is a night sky, white would be a little too stark for the clouds, so I'm going to use this grayish blue color instead. With the monoline brush, draw a few semicircles and then attach them at the bottom with a straight line. Then go ahead and fill the shape. Now make sure the shapes are a little taller than you actually want them to be, and you'll see why in a second. Now select the Noise Brush Eraser tool and start erasing the bottom section of each cloud. Start with the eraser at its maximum size so you get a nice subtle transition. Then reduce the size of the brush slightly and work on removing that sharp line at the base of the clouds. Switch back to the maximum size and keep erasing until you're satisfied with the transition. Depending on the look you want, you can also reduce the opacity on the cloud layer as well. The final detail will be to add a few stars, and here's a really quick shortcut. Create a new layer and go to the Actions menu and tap Edit Drawing Guide. Since we've been using Symmetry throughout this illustration, it should still be selected. Go to Options and then choose Quadrant. Now you have a vertical and a horizontal guide. In this mode, everything you draw in one quadrant will be repeated in the other 3 quadrants. I'm using white, and I have the monoline brush sized at about 15%. Now randomly place a few dots in one of your quadrants to create the stars. Now turn off Drawing Assist on that layer, and then you can go in and remove a few dots here and there so they feel a little more scattered and random and not so perfectly symmetrical. And that's it. Here's a close-up of how it turned out. If you decide to try this tutorial and share it on Instagram, be sure to tag me in the image so I can see your art and repost it. And here's your freebie. If you'd like to use the same color palette I used for this illustration, you can download it for free by going to geogram.com/lunamoth. If you enjoyed this tutorial, I'd love it if you'd give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.